and sing your praise, for the Lord now reigns on the throne of grace. Soon is
Good morning, everybody. All right, that was good enough. My name is Ben. I'm one of the pastors here at Real Life Community Church. Thank you for joining us here. Thank you for joining us online as well for this Sunday. I just wanted to do one quick announcement / thank you. We had over 25 people yesterday over at the Portage Community Garden across the street. The weather held up. We were able to have sunshine, and we were able to get a huge step in the right direction of getting those gardens set up and ready to go for different produce for our community and people being able to rent beds to grow their own produce who might not have the yard space for that. So would you just thank all of the volunteers that were a part of that? If you're wondering who was volunteering, look for the people that are walking like this, that don't want to turn their neck or bend over too far, because we're a little sore. There's a lot of weeds pulling, a lot of mulching, a lot of dirt moving. So thank you, thank you, thank you. We're going to be doing that again next Saturday as part of our Serve the Region weekend, and Pastor Rich is going to talk more about that. But there's going to be opportunities all throughout the summer to be able to help us with that garden and continue to see that garden thrive and grow and really meet a need, not only a physical need in the community, but also meet a relational need in the community. So thank you for being a part of that. I'm going to ask if you're able to, if you would stand with us as we're going to enter into a time of worship together. Father, we thank you for this day. We thank you for breathing life into us. We thank you for aligning everything so we can gather together in your name, for bringing each and every person here together. Help us to be able to pause this morning, even before we say a single word, sing a single note, play a single note, Lord. Help us to just remember who we are and who you are in our lives, all that you're doing in our lives, all that you still want to do in our lives, Lord. Just help us to be aware of your kingdom here, aware of our place as your beloved children. Just center us in the presence of your Son, Jesus. And it's in his name we pray. Amen. Let's sing together.
Good morning, everyone. All right, are you ready to worship this morning? Go ahead and sit down. I'm kidding, don't sit down. You just sit up, so I just thought I'd make you do something else. Sit in somebody else's seat real quick. Just kidding, here we go. See how long you can keep this part going.
I was lost with a broken heart. You picked me up, now I'm set apart. From the ash I am born again, forever safe in the Savior's hands. You are more than my words could say. I'll follow you, Lord, for all my days. Fix my eyes, follow in your ways. Forever free in unending grace. 'Cause you are my freedom. We lift you higher, lift you higher. Your love, never ending. Oh, oh, oh. You are life in us. Nothing can take your place. You are all we need. Your love has set us free. Oh, oh, oh. In the midst of the darkest night, let your love be the shining light, breaking chains that were holding me. You sent your son down and set me free. Everything of this world will fade. I'm pressing on till I see your face. I will live that your will be done, and I won't stop till your kingdom come. 'Cause you are my freedom. We lift you higher, lift you higher. Your love, never ending. Oh, oh, oh. You are alive in us. Nothing can take your place. You are all we need. Your love has set us free. Oh, oh, oh.
You guys, it's kind of techno. It's kind of techno. You guys are kind of Boots and Cats. You know what that is? Who doesn't know Boots and Cats? No. Here's Boots and Cats. Boots and cats and boots and cats and boots and cats and boots and cats and boots. Right? Somebody was doing a robot up there. I saw that. That was cool. All right, let's keep going.
Un momento.
Just be faithful. I'm not working the computer. That's all I'm saying. I have this confidence because I've seen the faithfulness of God still inside the storm, the promise of the sure. I trust the power of your word, enough to seek your kingdom first, beyond the barren place, beyond the ocean's waves. When I walk through the waters, I won't be overcome. When I go through the rivers, I will not be drowned. My God will make a way, so I am not afraid. You keep the promises you made. There isn't one that is delayed, so I will not lose heart. I will lift my arms. Well, yeah, can't stop to sing into the night. My praise will call the sun to rise. Declare the battle won. Declare that it is done. Yeah. When I walk through the water, I won't be overcome. When I walk
when every creature finds its inmost melody, and every human heart is native cry, and one enraptured hymn of praise will sing, Christ be magnified. Oh, Christ be magnified. Let his praise arise. Christ be magnified in me. And oh, Christ be magnified from the altar of my life. Christ be magnified in me. Jesus magnified in me. I won't bow to idols, I'll stand strong and worship you. And if it puts me in the fire, I'll rejoice 'cause you're there too. I won't be formed by feelings, I hold fast to what is true. And if the cross brings transformation, then I'll be crucified with you. 'Cause death is just the doorway into a resurrection life. And if I'll join you in your sufferings, then I'll join you when you rise. And when you return to glory, and all the angels and the saints, and my heart will still be singing, and my song will be the same. Oh, Christ be magnified. Let his praise arise. Christ be magnified in me. And oh, Christ be magnified from the altar of my life. Christ be magnified in me. And oh, Christ be magnified. Let his praise arise. Christ be magnified in me. And oh, Christ be magnified from the altar of my life. Christ be magnified in me.
I want to read something for you. First, a lot of times we come together, and I don't want to put a pall on anything or feel negative, but I feel like we need to spend some time just kind of today in some silent prayer. There's a word called lament. And a lot of times the church kind of fails at this a little bit, and I think it's good for us at times to do this. Lamenting means to mourn. It means to enter into maybe even the pain of others as they might be going through brokenness, and really kind of seeing things through the eyes of God, and the brokenness in the world today through the eyes of God. There's families in our midst, and families online right now that are joining us that have lost loved ones this week. Some of you know Janet Peters. Janet Peters, she fought hard, and she was a fighter, and still is a fighter, and there's a long, long illness, and she went to be with the Lord this week. And Casey DeMoss's father lost his life tragically yesterday. There's a lot of pain going on. At the same time, too, we live in this world that at times seems to embody brokenness. And I don't know how many more times we pray and ask for intervention when it comes to people dying from shootings, even just this last week in Texas now. All these different things that go on in the world that represent the brokenness, we know that Jesus is the source of life and light. We have a hope in Jesus. At the same time, too, there is something to be said about the church pausing and entering into that brokenness with people in those situations and lifting those up to Him. I want to read for you. There's an entire book called Lamentations, Lamenting. Lamentations, chapter 2, verses 10 through 12. It says this: The elders of daughter Zion sit on the ground in silence. They sprinkle dust on their heads, put on sackcloth. The young women of Jerusalem have bowed their heads to the ground. My eyes fail from weeping. I'm in torment within. My heart is poured out on the ground because my people are destroyed. Because children and infants faint in the streets of the city. They say to their mothers, "Where is bread and wine?" As they faint like the wounded in the streets of the city. Their lives ebb away in their mother's arms. The lamenter goes on and says, "Your wound is as deep as the sea. Who can heal you?" We know the healer. I just want to encourage you right now, maybe for a minute, I'm going to stop talking. Let's just pray in silence. You might even want to kneel where you are. It's completely up to you, but let's just take a posture of lamenting today, of mourning over the things that are going on in our world that aren't as they should be. We also hold out hope. Let's just spend some time in silent prayer. Father, in this silence, we come before you today. You tell us in your word you're the author, the perfecter of our faith. You tell us your grace is sufficient. Father, you tell us our hope is in you. In the world that we live in today with its brokenness and so many fragile lives hanging in the balance, so much innocence lost, we look to you. We look to you today. We know you know the desires of people's hearts. You know the ins and outs, the beginning and the end. You know all of these things. So, Father, we come to you. I pray that you would bring healing into the lives of those that are dealing with loss today. Loss that surpasses any words that we could say that would bring any healing. Father, it's just the depth of pain that you go through in certain circumstances. You know those things well. You gave your Son for people like us. So, Father, we come to you with praise and we come to you with thanksgiving, but we also come with a plea. We come, Father, asking that you would use your Holy Spirit to just bring healing and peace into the lives of so many, not just in our family here or the body of Christ, but, Father, to the world. There's so many that suffer needlessly. Father, prick our hearts, change our hearts, allow ourselves to be moved so desperately and so radically that we would allow ourselves to sacrifice for the sake of others, to bring healing, to bring hope. Father, we praise you for your Son. We're here because of Jesus, and we're here, Father, because of what you've done in our lives and in our hearts. We sing these songs of praise. We offer, Father, these prayers today, knowing that you hear us. We're so grateful, Father, for the grace that you give us. Would you be with us in the rest of the service? Help us to glorify you in everything we say. Everything that we do, it's in Jesus' name. Amen. Amen. You may be seated.
Been a moment you were forgotten. You are not hopeless.
I like doing math and I like to paint.
I like to do sports. I'm a good athlete.
I like Legos. I like to color. I like to draw.
My favorite thing to do is basically playing games.
I hear
very trustworthy and caring.
Awesome, valuable, artistic.
I'm calm and I'm lovable.
I'm friendly, I'm funny, smart.
If somebody needs something and I have it, I will actually give them it.
I'm a good kid. I had some bad in my past, but I'm gonna forget about my past and just figure out in the future.
Family, to me, is where people like get along and they're there for each other, they stick up for each other, and they're like have each other's backs all the time.
I mostly think of like a person that cares about other people, including myself, so much that basically it's not like there's nothing bad that happens.
Family will protect you and love you, and I think I will have like a happy life, being loved and cared about.
If you guys are hearing this, if basically I love to be in a family that cares about me, loves me, and would take care of me the best they can.
One of the interesting things that takes place is we as a church have opportunities to speak into that, and God wants to use us in different ways. I want to introduce you to these two ladies that are sitting on the platform today. Today is Blue Sunday. Blue Sunday is a day that's set aside for the church specifically, even to remember and understand, and also pray for those that are abused, for children who are abused and find themselves in systems of abuse and in situations like that, and to educate ourselves and then stand in the gap, if possible, so that those children can have a hope and a future and see some light in the midst of that. These two ladies are active participants in that. Linda Ling is to my far right. She works for DCS, and specifically in placing foster kids into foster families and intervening in times of emergency placements. And then we have Hillary Chattel. Hillary works for an organization called Hands of Hope. And I've asked both of them to share just briefly today what their areas are so that we can have a better understanding, but also an understanding of what it looks like for us to engage this as well. So would you thank them, first of all, for joining me up here on the platform? So Linda, specifically through DCS and in Porter County, what are some things that you feel like a church needs to understand about foster care, about the situation at hand right now in Porter County specifically, some of the needs that are going on?
When Pastor Rich first posed this question to me the other day, I was thinking like there's such a simple answer and it's such a complex answer. Bottom line is that there is a dire need right now for more foster families. We have more children coming into care than we have homes for them. We are also not in a place where we're replenishing the homes that we're losing. So we're not gaining the increase that we need to, like I said, replenish those families who are leaving for whatever the reason. Children obviously are in need of foster placement, foster care, when they've experienced child abuse, neglect, exploitation, trafficking, and for some reason they are not able to receive services in the home, and they do need to be removed from their biological family. This is a constant issue and concern in our community as well. In the United States, in 2021, a national estimate of 1,820 children died from abuse and neglect, which was an almost 8% increase from 2017. In 2021, Child Protection Service agencies, received an estimate of almost 4 million reports of abuse or neglect. In March of 2023 in Indiana, we received 18,000 of those reports, and about 52,000 reports of child abuse or neglect to date this year in 2023. In 2021, approximately 49,000 infants among 49 states were referred to their child protection service agencies for prenatal substance exposure, which means that they were born with some kind of illegal substances in their system. So as of March of 2023 in Indiana, there was 11,547 children statewide who are considered children in need of services, which means that they are involved with our child protective system and have open cases with DCS. In Porter County specifically, we are part of Region 2 with 6 other counties. There are 440 children placed outside of their home. 130 of those children are in a foster care placement. And in Region 1, our closest neighbors, there are 231, give or take, children placed outside of their home into foster homes. Right now, specifically, we're just in dire need of homes that accept teenagers, in general, school-age children, ages 5 and older, and sibling groups. We are separating siblings at an alarming rate just because there is not the space in the homes available. When children are placed, when there's a need for foster care in their own community, children are placed outside of their communities, so they're losing those essential connections with their teachers, their classmates, their sports teammates, their church community. And again, we're just separating siblings at such a high rate right now that it's a real problem in our community.
So I hear you saying that probably the biggest need right now is for new foster homes and foster families to step up.
Yes.
Okay, so sometimes we get ideas in our minds of what that looks like or can't look like or this or that. What are some misconceptions that people might have about foster care in general or being a foster family? So, I mean, sitting in here, we have potential foster families willing to open up their homes. What are some misconceptions that you think, just right off the top, need to be addressed?
Two of the big ones is that some people feel like they have to have had personal parenting experience or have a knowledge of the child welfare system. And that is false. Anyone can foster if they have the willingness to learn and to accept help, to be part of a team, to kind of rally around these children and families to begin that healing, get them to a place of better functioning. When a child is placed into a foster home, like I said, there is a team of people surrounding that child, that biological family and the foster family, and in addition to a foster family's own personal support system. There are ongoing trainings available, there are professionals available, and if there's someone who's not in place that you need, we can put that support in place for you to help you. Another big one is that people think that if they become licensed, DCS gives you a call and says, I have an 17-year-old runaway, whatever's going on, you have to accept that child. You're licensed, you accept the children that we call you for. That is false. If you were to go through the initial licensing process, you have an in-depth conversation with the person who's licensing you about what you feel comfortable with, what kind of children would fit best in your home. So you talk about different backgrounds that you'd feel comfortable with, things that the children have been through, capacity, like how many children that you feel would fit best in your home at any given time, gender, behaviors, medical needs, educational needs. You can say whether you're open to traditional foster care, respite care, or if you want to be considered for emergency short-term placement only. No preferences are set in stone. You can change those as you gain experience. And you can put your home on hold as well at any given time. And say, hey, we got something going on right now. We're not accepting calls right now. That's okay. You let us know what you need from us. And this is a big misconception because we want foster families to feel confident and assured when they're accepting children into their home. We don't want you to already have major reservations about taking a specific child or placement, and then in a week or two, we have to move that child again. And then again, all these connections that we're trying to make for that healing process are, again, we're breaking and we're changing and we're creating additional trauma by moving that child again.
Okay. So with all that said, to you, best case scenario, and this is a lot of weight to carry for you, so what's the reward for you? What is one of the most rewarding things that you get to experience being involved in this? Surrounded by so many needs and so many circumstances, what is a blessing to you? What do you see?
In terms of foster care specifically, when a foster family and a biological family can work together in the best interests of children, when we put the grown-up stuff aside, when we realize there are going to be challenges, not every day is easy. This is an emotional situation that you're putting yourself in. You know, you're putting your heart on the line in your home, in your family, but that when everything works for the good, you know, when you're focusing on the child and those children and those families get the help that they need to begin that healing process, to get those therapeutic services to function better. Ideally, children return home to their families. That is the ultimate goal of DCS always, is to provide reunification efforts so that families can get back together. So when seeing a case from the beginning where it's just total chaos and instability and sadness and brokenness to the end of a case when those children get to go home in a better place, it's just amazing. And we're, you know, if that can't happen and those children cannot return home, it's been, you know, it's a blessing to be able to sit there on adoption day with those foster parents that you've supported throughout the years and throughout this placement to adopt that child into their family forever.
Cool. So, Hillary, with Hands of Hope works hand in hand with DCS and different organizations, but more specifically, even churches. So, explain to us, what is Hands of Hope specifically? How does it play into all of this?
So Hands of Hope is a nonprofit organization that's based in Indiana, and our focus is on orphans and foster care children. So what that means, there's a lot of things that go into it, but what I specifically do is I connect churches, and I go around in Northwest Indiana, I make calls, I'll travel, and meet with these churches and be like, hey, this is a need, whether they know it or not, that the foster care system needs support, and these foster parents need support, and even the biological families that maybe they get reunified, they need support. And that honestly, like, if we're gonna be the church that the church is called to be, that's to step into those places and to help these families and help these children. So our belief at Hands of Hope is that the churches need to step in and to fill in those gaps and those needs. And one of the crazy things we always talk about is that if every church in Indiana had a foster family, there would be no foster children in limbo. Like, every foster child would have a family, or a child in the system would have a family, but that's not the case. So really it is a thing that we're trying to find the gaps and fill it in, and trying to help recruit foster families as well in the process too. So
I know one of the big challenges too, and you might be thinking, okay, as a foster family, all of a sudden you're just kind of, there you go. So the lack of support probably is a huge fear, or what do we do now? So talk to me about, like, from a Hands of Hope perspective, I know you guys talk about care communities. What is a care community? How does that look in the life of a church?
So a care community, a simplified version is you take what would currently be a life group, but it would be a collection of people throughout the church that are very interested in being in this care community. They might have different skill sets, different passions. It could be where they're really great with children. It could be that they're really great with cleaning or even relational. They all come together. They're part of a care community, and that is wraparound care. So say a foster family they're new maybe this year, and they already have 2 children, maybe they get 2 more, and it's all of a sudden like, they have support from the workers and stuff, but maybe they don't have biological family nearby, and they feel like they're just, they're in the thick of it. A care community comes around this family, and they're there to provide support relationally and emotionally. They're there to provide maybe, we usually say for sure, a meal once a week. So someone in that care community will be on rotation to provide a meal, whether it's from KFC or it's a home-cooked meal. They're there to help, like, if they need help doing yard work or cleaning or laundry, they'll take the laundry, wash it, fold it, bring it back to the house. It could be, some of the really cool ways is if some people in the care community get background checked through DCS, they can take the children, whether it's their biological, because honestly, if they already have biological children, they're going through it too. So sometimes also taking the biological children out and giving the foster children space with the biological parents, or vice versa, like being able to take them on play dates with your own children or to the park, to watch them while the parents have a court date or have an appointment. And then also, sometimes respite care comes out of that too. So respite care is through DCS, where you get licensed to be a respite care parent, I guess that's what the term would be. But That would be when the parents have to go out of town for the weekend, whether it's vacation or they have to go out of state. Sometimes these kids can't leave the state, right, for emergencies. And these children can come and stay with these respite parents for the weekend or whatever that might be. So that is kind of like, it's a very unique, a very self-made group, unique to what the family's needs are.
Cool. Kind of like what's going to happen here tonight. So talk to us about what's taking place here tonight in this building.
All right, so tonight we're hosting a foster parent night out. I did a lot better in the first service, so I apologize.
You're fine.
A foster parent night out. So we have signed up and we've got volunteers already pre-screened through DCS that are background checked. And so foster families in Porter County have signed up and they're coming to drop off their children so that the parents can go out and get a date night, or they could just sit at home in a quiet house for the first time in what could be months. So we will have these foster children, I think some of the biological children as well, come to our church and we'll play games, maybe movie, like we'll just see how the mood goes and see how everything goes. But yeah, we're just there to provide that support for these families, just to be able to, for them to know that we're there and that we see them and that we're wanting to support them in a way that's easy right now, but hopefully relationally we can connect, and that can be a step into what can be care communities in our church. So that way we can continue to support these families that need it and that are in the thick of it, especially when sometimes we can't, some of us can't be foster parents, but this is a way to be involved and to help them and to help these families who have stepped in.
Cool. So action. So what next? So some of you might be sitting here, you might be thinking, I'd thought about foster care at one point, but I got questions or whatever the case is. The good news is these ladies have answers, all kinds of answers. Don't you? Yes, all the answers. But there's a table in the foyer. I would just encourage you, even if you're just curious, like you want some more information, you at least want to have a conversation about what it looks like for you to be involved, whether it's in a care community or maybe you want to step into the foster situation and foster care possibilities in your own home. I would encourage you to stop by and talk to them, at least pick up a packet of information. I know both of them have stuff that they can email you, and I don't know either of them to be high-pressure salesmen, but obviously there's a need. And I think at the same time, when the church sees a need, we have a responsibility to step in at times. And so I just want to encourage you to be praying. Can I pray for you guys right now? Let me pray for you. Father, we thank you for these two ladies. We thank you for the work that they're doing. They're the hands and feet of Jesus in the lives of so many. And Father, I pray for these children. I pray that you would rescue them, that you would find places that would receive them with open and loving arms. I pray that they would see Jesus. Father, be with the families that step into these situations. There's an act of selflessness, Father, that's required. And Father, that's not lost on us. You are a selfless God who gave your Son. And Father, these opportunities are opportunities for us to look more like Jesus. So would you help us as a church, Father, as we discern what our next steps are? And for all these things, Father, we glorify you and we praise you. It's in Jesus' name. Amen. Amen. As the ushers come, we're going to receive an offering. Would you thank these ladies for all their work? Thank you. Thank you. Let's pray for the offering. Father, we come before you today. We know, Father, your love and grace for us. And I trust that you found us to be good stewards as we give today. Help us to do so with a willing heart, the right motive. And Father, I pray that you'd use this to grow your kingdom. It's in Jesus' name. Amen. Some of you are thinking, Pastor Rich, you have 15 minutes. Buckle your seatbelt. You ready? Okay. 1 Peter 2, 9 through 12 says this, but you are a chosen people. You're a royal priesthood, a holy nation, God's special possession, that you might declare the praises of him who called you out of darkness into his wonderful light. Once you were not a people, but now you are the people of God. Once you had not received mercy, but now you have received mercy. Dear friends, I urge you as foreigners and exiles to abstain from sinful desires which wage war against your soul. Live such good lives among the pagans that though they accuse you of doing wrong, they may see your good deeds and glorify God on the day he visits us. So our series that we're wrapping up today, it began a couple of weeks ago with Pastor Ben. Pastor Ben shared with us this truth, this powerful truth. We talked about what it looks like to be rooted in the good news, rooted in the gospel of Jesus Christ, means that people who are rooted in the gospel live with Jesus as king. Jesus is king of your life, which sounds a little like, whoa, that's kind of heavy. But here, let me tell you about this king. He's merciful. He's gentle. He's loving. He's caring. He's selfless. He's giving. And that speaks a little bit into the kingdom of Jesus the King. Kings have kingdoms. And this kingdom that Jesus has is unique. We talked about this last week. It has certain characteristics. It has a sound we talked about last week. It sounds like freedom. It sounds like liberty. It sounds like a place where oppression ceases, where there's not a kingdom built on power grabs and political maneuvering and all that kind of other different stuff. It's an incredible kingdom of liberty and equity and freedom and all those different things where debts are forgiven, oppression ceases. So those who are rooted in the gospel accept the realities of this kingdom of Jesus the King. So we profess a faith in Jesus the King. We live our lives as though Jesus is king of our lives, but we also have to embrace and understand the realities of what his kingdom is like. And so today, we close out this series with this understanding. Those who are rooted in the gospel live as kingdom priests. Are you ready? Okay, so let's talk. So when I hear the word priest, I have an immediate picture that pops into my mind. We go down Cedar Street in Washington, Illinois, where it comes to a T at Jefferson, and right there is St. Patrick's Catholic Church. And in St. Patrick's Catholic Church, I grew up with two priests, Father Hughes and Father Mooney. Father Hughes, he was the happy one. Father Mooney, not so much. I don't think I ever saw Father Mooney smile, but, you know, he was a man of God, wore the collar, celibate, all that kind of different stuff. But what I remember of a priest is, you know, a priest is somebody who went and sat in a booth at the back of the sanctuary, and every once in a while you had to go into the booth on the other side of the wall. You knew Father Mooney was on there, so I don't know why there was a screen or anything like that, but you had to go into confession. So I confessed all my first grade horrible activity to Father Mooney, who would kind of on the other side of the screen. And then as punishment, which I never quite figured out, okay, go say 5 Hail Marys, 7 Our Fathers, and 10 acts of contrition. And so my punishment for all the bad things I did was go pray. That was my punishment. But anyway, it messed me up a little bit in my head, if you couldn't tell. That was my experience. That's the image that pops into my mind. Maybe you've had some more positive experiences when it comes to that, but that's what I remember. And here's the good news. We talk about this all the time. There's so many words that have been given certain connotations that are negative in life. You and I get the opportunity to redeem some of those words. And one of those words is priest. We get to redeem that today. King Jesus has priests. Here's what you have to reconcile. You're it, right? You're the priests. If you profess a faith in Jesus Christ today, you are a part of the priesthood of believers. You're a royal priesthood. Not only are you a priest, like, you're a royal priest. I've been told I'm a royal pain in the butt sometimes, but being told you're a royal priest, I just said that out loud, didn't I, that quiet part. But here you are, you're a royal priesthood, and King Jesus has priests, and those priests are those who have put their faith in Jesus as king. Now, simply put, priests ultimately are mediators in a way. They're the go-between. They're representatives of the king. to the people and the people to the king. Okay? Now, you may not wear a clerical collar, you may have not, given yourself over to celibacy or all those kinds of different things, but you are priests in Jesus' kingdom. In the passage that we read earlier, the Apostle Peter, he's writing to a bunch of Christians. At the time, the place was called Asia Minor. Today, it's called Turkey. So he's writing to a bunch of Christians in Turkey, and they're a unique group. They're unique because who they are Gentiles. Now, very simply, that just means they're not Jewish, but it also means that their heritage, they didn't have the Jewish heritage. They didn't have the Jewish religious line. They didn't have the Jewish family lineage. They didn't have any of that. They had no backstory with God like the Jews did. So here they are, they're in Gentile territory, non-Jewish territory, and these people have put their faith in the Jewish Savior, the Jewish Messiah. And so this is really important to understand because at one point they were the majority, now they're the minority. Now they're the minority, and they're suffering the consequences of that. They're kind of cast out. They're outsiders now. And that had repercussions. They were being persecuted to a certain extent. And this is true in any situation where you find yourself in where you profess your faith or you start living out actions with your faith, even actions that look great, like sacrificial. Like, why would you sacrifice like that for Jesus? It almost endears questioning and persecution to a certain way, to a certain extent, where people question you. And sometimes when that happens, the temptation is to back off a little bit. The temptation is to kind of forsake our faith or the calls that our faith places on us because of the pressure that we experience from the outside. But what Peter's doing is he's writing these Christians in Turkey to reaffirm them, to help them to understand, and he throws this moniker on them. You're priests. You're royal priests. Like, he throws this huge title on them. But he also says two things. He gives them two other words. You're foreigners and you're exiles too. So you are honorable priests. You're these representatives of God to man. But you're also foreigners and you're exiles. As a foreigner, it means you're in a world that you're not from anymore. Or as an exile, it means you're living out this place where you don't fit, per se, anymore. You're foreigners and you're exiles. But Peter describes them also as priests, which is a profound word. They've been appointed out of one world now into another. They are ambassadors, they're representatives, but as priests, they are so much more than that. So much more than that. And Peter's helping them to see that they are the designated representatives. You and I, if we profess a faith in King Jesus, we are the designated representatives of the kingdom of God in the kingdom of this world. That's who you are. That has a look to it. Last week we talked about the sound of the kingdom, but you and I have a look about us if we are those priests. Now, you might be thinking, hey man, for those people in Turkey, good for them. Thumbs up, go get it. I didn't sign up to be a priest. Okay? I didn't sign up for this. You know what? I didn't sign up for it either. God chose you. He chose you. And he chose me. Just like he chose those believers in Turkey. So let's ramp this up a bit. We're not going to back off. We're going to ramp this up just a little bit, okay? As a royal priesthood, some of that look is pretty important because representing King Jesus means living sacrificially for others. Those that are rooted in this royal priesthood, this gospel, the good news, are priests who live sacrificially for other people. Again, I want you to think about kind of our picture of priests. Like if you're Catholic or you grew up Catholic, priests sacrifice certain things to be more available to whatever it is that God's calling is on their life or the people that God has entrusted to them. They make a vow of celibacy so they're not married, so that even more of their attention can be focused. They live cloistered away sometimes. I mean, all of these sacrifices are made so they can be a little bit more singularly focused on whatever it is that God is asking them to do. They make sacrifices. We are people of a cross, an instrument of sacrifice. a symbol of sacrifice. Jesus, the great high priest, laid down his life for people like you and me, okay? People who were in desperate need of grace and mercy, forgiveness. Being rooted in the gospel means modeling that sacrificial living for other people. It looks like Jesus when you do that. It looks like you're king when you sacrifice for the sake of others. It looks like love for your neighbors, even the neighbors. I think this is funny. Even the neighbors right now who have signs in their yards for people you would never vote for. You've seen the signs popping up? Okay. For people who don't think like you, who act like you, who talk like you. For those people, those people that, I love Jesus, but I'm going to talk about them on the side with just a couple of friends. Those people who we like to talk about and all that kind of different stuff. Even those people, it looks like Jesus, our King, when we love them, when we sacrifice for them. So let me ask you, would you sacrifice? Would you sacrifice? Would you be willing to go without to show hospitality to somebody? To show love to somebody? We just heard this incredible example of a huge, huge need in our area. Northwest Indiana is a huge need. A need that will be met when people are willing to pay the personal cost for those needs being met. Can you imagine? Can you imagine what it looks like? And what God might be able to do with that sacrificial love in mass? Like a large scale, what God could do. But it takes more than just living sacrificially. In fact, I think that there's a step in this that comes before living sacrificially. It means offering intercession for other people. And I'm working on this, just so you know, in my own life and in the life of our church, and trying to flesh out what this looks like for us in the future, but we've got to start learning how to pray first. We've just got to. I just think it's a prerequisite for being everything God wants us to be. We've got to learn how to pray first. I, Rich Doring, have got to learn how to pray first before I have that conversation, before I do this, before I make that decision, before we tackle this initiative. I have got to start learning how to pray first. We have got to start learning how to pray first because it's so important. Because until you are willing to pray first, you probably aren't going to be able to see people through Jesus' eyes. You're not going to see them through Jesus' eyes. In fact, we're told not just to pray for people, we're actually supposed to pray for our enemies. We're supposed to be praying for those that persecute us. Part of living as chosen people, as a royal priesthood, okay, as a holy nation, is that we are set apart to be instruments of God's grace and reconciliation in this world. We aren't just in between God and the rest of the world here. Our job is to be reconcilers. We're trying to be active participants in God's reconciliation of the world to Him. We have a responsibility in that, and that begins with prayer. Let me tell you why that's really, really important. Because unless we get God's mind on things and God's heart and see through His eyes, I mess it up. I do. So I grew up, again, in central Illinois. I grew up fishing. My dad taught me how to fish on the Illinois River. There's a place north of Peoria called the Brickyard, and he would take us out to the Brickyard, take me out to the Brickyard. And my dad's deal was this, once I got old enough to kind of go by myself. My dad's deal was, if you're not going to work today, you better bring fish home. Don't just go out there, because we're going to eat that. So that was just kind of our life. And so I grew up fishing for catfish. So when you went to the Brickyard, you threw your worm out or whatever it was, you could catch all kinds of stuff, but you're generally catching small ones, big ones. We didn't throw anything out. That was just how it worked. And so we were going to eat those fish. So it would not be uncommon for me to bring a stringer full of fish home. And that's when I had to use a certain tool. I had to use a certain tool if you're going to clean those. And so this is what that tool is right here. So somebody made this for me back in my last church. I'm not asking for another one, by the way. This is a stick. I know, mind blown, right? Absolutely mind blown. So if you're going to clean a fish, if you're going to process a fish, if you're going to, I know this is just great right before lunch, if you're going to skin a catfish, if you're going to do all that kind of different stuff, it's hard when that catfish is 1.5 feet, 2 feet long. They're pretty slimy and slippery, and they're also evil. They're just evil. So you've got to do something, right? You have to take care of business. And so the way you do that is you take one of these and you just smack it right on top of the head. I know, aren't you just, man, this is awesome, Pastor Rich. You smack that fish on top of the head as hard as you can so that it just dies. You're just knocking out, you're killing it. You're dispatching it, okay? Do you know what this is called? It's called a priest. I know, you don't believe me right now. Google it, because evidently if Google says it, everybody believes it. So go home, Google it. This is called a priest. A priest. And when you take that priest, when you have that fish, and you give it its last rites. Are you following? That's where the name came from. That's where the name came from. You're giving it its last rites. Okay, so the world is littered with people who've been bashed by priests. Bashed by priests who, in the name of reconciliation and trying to get people to submit to Jesus the King, that they've dispatched a last rites kind of faith sharing that does not, absolutely under any circumstance, start with prayer. Because if it did, God would be faithful to give you his eyes and his heart to see people for who they are, created in his image. Instead, it starts with pointing and pounding the truth on people, somehow believing that if they would just get hit with the truth enough, they will finally submit to that truth. Priests that cause people to run from the church instead of running to the church as a place of refuge and healing. Here's what I found out in my life. Praying for people first, even people I disagree with, even people who are wrong. You have those people, right? You all have those people in your life that are wrong because you're always right, right? I have those people too. I'm always right. Even people who are wrong. Even people whose theology is so screwed up. You're like, where did you even get that? Even people like that, even people you disagree with, if I will pray for them first, somehow God, in the midst of that, reminds me of who I am. Reminds me of how much of the truth is yet to sink into my heart. Reminds me of my place. And then I start seeing people through Jesus' eyes. People not to be smacked upside the head with a stick, but people who need to be shown sacrificial love. That's why it begins with prayer. Because people don't need my truth. They need the truth. And it's the truth that will set them free. It's the truth that will set them free. Now, as we draw this to a close, let me pull this down even deeper just a little bit really quickly. I think that if we're going to talk about what it looks like for us to be priests, if we really are rooted in the gospel and embody what this priesthood stuff looks like, Jesus gets to be the one that defines what priests look like, okay? And he literally spends a bunch of time in the Sermon on the Mount, starting in Matthew chapter 5, talking about what this looks like, talking about what we ought to be, how we ought to speak, how we ought to be seen. And one of the ways that he talks about this is the fact that priests in his kingdom are salty and bright. We are to be salty and bright. So let me read Matthew 5, starting in verse 13 really quick. You're salt of the earth, but if salt has lost its taste, how shall its saltiness be restored? It's no longer good for anything except to be thrown out and trampled under people's feet. You are the light of the world. A city set on a hill cannot be hidden, nor do people light a lamp and put it under a basket, but on a stand. It gives light to all in the house. In the same way, let your light shine before others so that they may see your good works and give glory to your Father who is in heaven. Now, for you and I, salt is cheap. It's a condiment, right? It's there. It's not very expensive. In ancient times, salt was money. Salt was money. In fact, many people earn their wages in salt, hence the phrase, that person is so lazy they're not worth their salt, okay? It literally was a commodity, and it was a commodity, and it was so valued because of what salt does. Not just the flavor part, but because of what salt does. And you and I need to remember that just like salt, priests preserve. You and I are called to preserve. A concentration of 20% salt will kill bacteria, will begin to prevent infection. Now, the analogy is not a hard one to make, but let me say this. A priest, you and I are called to be preservers. And preservers bring life. Preservers restore life. They protect life. They step into the gap for the vulnerable, for the fragile. That's what preservers do. They step into the marginalized places where people go unseen and needs go met unseen. That's what it means to be a preserver. And for me, when I think about that, you can't escape the fact that it has to do with proximity. He says, what's good if the salt loses its saltiness? You just throw it out, because it's not going to make any difference. In order for salt to be effective as a preserving agent, it's got to touch whatever it's got to preserve, right? It's got to touch. Priests, you, me. We have to go where we're needed. Seamlessly. All throughout the Gospels, you watch Jesus go exactly to the place that religious people would not go. You're not supposed to touch lepers. Jesus says, I'm going to touch a leper. You're not supposed to talk to women by yourself. Jesus says, I'm going to talk to that lady. I mean, Jesus says, you're not supposed to eat at a tax collector's house. He's like, what's for dinner? I mean, he's literally going all the time, everywhere that the religious people were not going. Why? Because that's where he was salty. That's where the salt was needed. Jesus never moved out of the drama. He moved into it. He doesn't run away from your drama either. He runs right smack dab into it and says, let's do this drama thing together. Let's do this together. Let's figure this out. Real lifers, we embody mission, and that looks like proximity. Proximity. But not just to preserve, because priests also bring healing. We bring healing with us wherever we go. Salt cleanses and it heals in the same way it preserves. It's got to make contact. It heals by being present. So let me ask you, are you known as being a healing agent in the circles that you run around in? Are you known for your words on social media bringing healing to people's lives? Is that what we're known for? Imagine, again, the response. A weary and broken and scattered world right now. Imagine the response a world like that would have to a preserving, healing priest of King Jesus. What happens is they would start to see, because priests also illuminate. They show the way. Again, are you lighting the way for other people to find their way out of darkness, or are you just busy pointing out their darkness? Are you lighting the way out of it by the way you're living your life? Are you providing a way out of the darkness for other people to follow out of the darkness? Because in that illuminating of the truth of God's love, forgiveness, and grace, priests also reveal the way. As ambassadors, as priests, do we blend into the darkness that's around us, or does our presence create an awareness of just how dark the darkness is? As a follower of Jesus Christ, as a priest for this upside-down kingdom, this kingdom of King Jesus, we've been given a light, and it needs to be seen by others. The German atheist philosopher Nietzsche, he once said that if he saw more redeemed people, he would be more apt to believe in their Redeemer. Which is a glaring indictment, but it means it's good sometimes to ask, what does Jesus mean by light? He calls himself the light of the world. John says he's the life that is the light of men, the light that shines in the darkness. The Apostle Paul talks about Jesus as the light of the gospel, as the glory of Jesus Christ. The light. You and I have that light shining through our lives if our actions reflect the nature of Jesus. His love, His compassion, His forgiveness. The light shines through our attitudes, our words, our deeds. And when people see that our lives have been changed, so that we have Jesus' values, so that we see the power of God at work in our lives, changing us more and more into the image of Jesus, when they see redeemed people, they're more inclined to believe that we actually have a Redeemer. Scripture teaches God's light, and in Him there is no darkness at all. If we say we have fellowship with Him and walk in darkness, we lie and do not practice the church. Our responsibility, listen closely, our responsibility as priests is to live surrendered lives so that the transformation could take place so profoundly and the presence of Christ would be seen in our acts of kindness, in our words, in our speech, in our countenance, in everything. That we would live that surrendered. Not next week, but the week after that, we're going to start a series. There's a part of me that's a little worried about sharing with you the title of it, just because I want you guys to come back. We're going to do 3 messages on what it looks like to be rooted in holiness, which is a big word. That's why the very first message is going to be, what is it? But the second message is going to be what it's not. And then the third message is, so what does that mean? What does that mean? It means that you and I are no longer conformed to the patterns of the kingdom that we are not citizens of anymore. We are conformed to the patterns of a different kingdom, a different king. It's King Jesus. In the end, God's will is done in this region. God's will is done on earth as it is in heaven by those who act as priests of salt and light, a kingdom where they no longer have their citizenship. You are the priesthood of believers. I don't know how you feel about that. You are a priest. Now, if you want to wear a collar, go for it. What you want to do with that, go do it. But here's what I want you to know. You were chosen for this. You were chosen for this. And the one who chooses you is faithful to bring about what needs to happen in your life for you to be the kind of priest He needs you to be. Me as well. I ask you to stand. Next week, there's about 10 projects that are going to be going on throughout the weekend. Everything from visiting people in nursing homes to going and taking things to the police department, fire department. There's going to be some garden work that takes place. There's going to be building a new garden at the Housing Opportunities Complex off of Central. There's going to be all kinds of different things that are going on. And I'm just going to give you full disclosure and just put all my cards out for you to see. That's 10 projects. Next year, there should be 40. Because I'm going for maximum participation. I'm going for 100% participation. So if you're sitting in here and you're thinking, I ain't no priest, hey, listen, I'm appointing you right now as a priest, and you're going to be in a project next year, okay? Because we are about sharing the light. We are about going out and being the salt and being the light in the world that we're in. And so here's what I want to tell you next week. I'm going to share with you a story that many of you heard the very first time that we met, back in the fall of 2020. I was here sitting on a couch on this platform, and you heard a story. I'm going to share that story again with you next week. Then I'm going to invite you to do something. If you're not in a project, or if you just want to be in another project, because I'm in like 3, after service next week, wear some dirty sneakers, wear some holy jeans. I think Jesus will be all right with that. I'm going to meet you in the foyer after the second service, and I'm going to hand out trash bags and gloves. And I don't know about you, but I'm kind of sick of driving between Swanson and Aldi on 6 and seeing all the trash. And you might be thinking, seriously, like trash is going to bring some big major transformation. Listen. I'm going to share with you a story next week. It's an important one. I've been here now for almost 2.5 years. We've now come full circle. And it's time to revisit this again. Because this is who we are now. We are real life. We are about encountering God. We're about embracing community. And we're about embodying the mission that Jesus has for us. And we're doing it as one. That excites me. I'm so proud of you. So proud of all of you. Can I pray for you? Father, in your grace and in your mercy, you brought us here today as the body of Christ to celebrate the name of Jesus, to lift his name up. We spent time today, Father, lamenting, even recognizing maybe areas that are going on in brokenness in our world where we as a church maybe even have failed to step in. Would you help us to step into those places today? Step into those gaps? Father, as we honor you and as we glorify you this week by the way we live our lives, I pray that all eyes and all hearts and our ears would turn towards you, would recognize your deep, deep love for them. And be with these people. Pray that you would shower your love upon them, help them to know just how precious they are to you. It's in Jesus' name. And all God's people said, amen. God bless you. Hey, remember to stop by that table out there and see Linda and Hillary. Thanks.